In the quiet, gilded halls of the British royal family, conflict rarely announces itself with raised voices or leaked emails. Instead, it arrives in the silent, devastating precision of legal paperwork. Princess, and long revered as the steadfast backbone of the House of Windsor, has taken an unprecedented step that has sent shockwaves through the monarchy. Through her legal representatives, she has formally documented and secured binding usage rights to a specific wing of the historic Sandringham Estate. This calculated legal maneuver effectively locks Queen Camilla out of a space she had reportedly been eyeing for a low-profile summer retreat. To understand why this action is so profound, one must recognize how the royal family has operated for centuries. Property access within the family has never relied on contracts or formal leases. It has always been governed by implicit trust, tradition, and unspoken family agreements passed down through generations. By bringing lawyers into a private family estate, Princess has shattered that long-standing tradition, signaling a dramatic breakdown of trust at the very top of the institution. Sandringham is not like Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, which belong to the Crown Estate and are held in trust for the nation. Purchased in 1862 by Queen Victoria for her son, the future King Edward VII, Sandringham is private personal property belonging directly to the sitting monarch. Spanning over 20,000 acres of countryside in Norfolk, it has served as the family's ultimate sanctuary, a place of quiet retreat, holiday gatherings, and personal privacy away from the public gaze. Because it is private land, housing allocations have always been handled as an internal family matter based on goodwill. But when informal goodwill disintegrates, legal clarity becomes the only remaining shield. Princess Anne's decisive move does not claim ownership of the land, which remains with King Charles, but establishes ironclad occupancy rights for her branch of the family. A door that might have once been navigated through soft diplomatic conversation has now been firmly locked shut with legal ink. This bold action exposes a deep, festering rift between the Princess Royal and Queen Camilla, a rivalry shaped by decades of contrasting philosophy, duty, and personal values. To fully grasp the magnitude of Princess Anne's decisive action, one must delve into the deep-seated historical dynamic that defines her relationship with Queen Camilla. This is not a sudden flare-up born of a modern disagreement. It is a complex tension that spans half a century, rooted in the turbulent years of the 1970s. Long before Camilla became Queen Consort, and long before her marriage to King Charles, her history was intricately entwined with the private lives of the royal family. The emotional fallout from King Charles's early relationship with Camilla, his subsequent marriage to Princess Diana, and the ultimate public breakdown of that union created lasting fractures within the House of Windsor. During those turbulent decades, while the monarchy was rocked by public scandal and media frenzy, Princess Anne took a radically different path. She carved out a reputation as the most disciplined, stoic, and relentlessly hard-working member of the royal family. Year after year, the Princess Royal consistently carries out hundreds of official engagements, approaching her duties with a straightforward, no-nonsense work ethic. For Anne, the survival and integrity of the institution always come first, overriding personal desires or individual convenience. Camilla's journey, by contrast, followed a very different trajectory. Having endured intense public criticism and scrutiny for years, she gradually navigated her way into the official royal fold, eventually being accepted as Charles's wife and, ultimately, elevated to Queen Consort upon his accession. While Camilla's approach centers around personal relationships, social networks, and a softer presence alongside Charles, Anne's approach remains unyielding, pragmatic, and deeply protective of traditional standards. Palace insiders describe their dynamic not as open warfare, but as a cool, professional tolerance, a polite distance maintained for the sake of public unity. However, this fragile equilibrium was pushed to its breaking point by recent internal crises, most notably the high-profile fallout surrounding Prince Andrew, the disgraced Duke of York. Stripped of his official duties and royal titles following his involvement in severe public scandals, was eventually forced to relocate to a farm on the Sandringham Estate. When renewed legal scrutiny brought law enforcement attention to the estate grounds, the optics for the royal family became catastrophic. It was at this juncture that Princess Anne and Queen Camilla found themselves on completely opposite sides of a fundamental dilemma. From Anne's perspective, despite Andrew's public disgrace and overwhelming unpopularity, he remains her brother. and advocated for treating him with basic dignity and personal family support away from the public eye, believing that family loyalty should not be entirely discarded even in the face of institutional shame. Camilla, on the other hand, held a far more uncompromising institutional view. She reportedly argued that any visible support or tolerance for Andrew threatened to dismantle years of hard work spent restoring the monarchy's public reputation. In Camilla's eyes, protecting the crown required complete, absolute detachment from Andrew's legal troubles. This sharp clash between personal family obligation and cold institutional protection transformed existing underlying tensions into an acute, irreconcilable conflict. Against the backdrop of the severe ideological dispute, Princess Anne executed her legal strategy with surgical precision by deploying her legal team to document and secure usage rights for her family's designated wing at Sandringham. She transformed a vulnerable family understanding into an unassailable legal reality. It is crucial to understand that, and is not attempting to claim actual land ownership away from King Charles. Sandringham remains the private property of the sovereign. Instead, and has converted decades of informal occupancy arrangements into legally binding contracts. In the broader context of British landed gentry, formalizing residential rights through licensing agreements or protected occupancies is a standard legal procedure used to prevent future intergenerational disputes. However, within the House of Windsor, where property access has historically rested entirely on discretionary royal favor and unspoken trust, taking such a formal legal step is virtually unheard of. The fact that Princess Anne deemed formal documentation necessary speaks volumes about her assessment of the current royal dynamic. She no longer trusts informal understandings to protect her household standing. The timing of this legal move was particularly strategic. Whispers within palace circles had suggested that Queen Camilla was exploring options for an expanded footprint at Sandringham, seeking a tranquil summer retreat, while King Charles spent extended periods at Balmoral in Scotland. For decades, Camilla relied on Raymill House, her privately owned country home in Wiltshire, as her ultimate personal sanctuary away from official royal life. However, as she integrated more deeply into the royal estate system, adjustments to her living arrangements created a need for a secure private retreat within the official perimeter. By securing binding legal rights over her family's wing right at this juncture, Princess Anne effectively preempted any potential reassignment of those rooms. What might have been negotiated through subtle internal influence has now been closed off by enforceable legal documents. This development places King Charles in an extraordinarily difficult position. Caught between his fiercely dutiful sister and his indispensable wife, the king faces an impossible balancing act. Both women hold immense power and significance in his life and reign, and represents unwavering stability, relentless work ethic, and traditional continuity. Camilla represents emotional support, public partnership, and modern adaptability. With ongoing health challenges, the continued absence of Prince Harry, and the lingering fallout of the Prince Andrew scandal, King Charles cannot afford an open rift between the Queen Consort and the Princess Royal. Consequently, the king has resorted to the traditional royal strategy of silent neutrality, choosing not to intervene publicly or force a confrontation. Yet, silence does not dissolve legal documents. It merely postpones the inevitable moment when formal boundaries must be confronted. The emergence of formal legal contracts within the private gates of Sandringham marks a historic turning point for the House of Windsor. For generations, the monarchy operated on an unwritten code of familial deference and absolute discretion. Internal disagreements were quietly settled behind closed doors under the gentle yet firm authority of the reigning sovereign. However, the passing of Queen Elizabeth II altered that delicate gravitational center forever. Queen Elizabeth possessed an unmatched moral authority that effortlessly bound the family together. No one dared to risk her disapproval by escalating personal grievances into legal battles. With her absence, that long-standing informal framework has noticeably collapsed, giving way to an era where individual members feel compelled to secure their own positions through legally binding guarantees. For Queen Camilla, this legal boundary represents far more than a minor administrative adjustment. It is a deeply personal slight. After spending decades overcoming intense public hostility, press intrusion, and the persistent label of being an outsider, Camilla fought hard to establish her rightful place within the royal family. Discovering that her sister-in-law utilized legal representation to permanently restrict her access to part of primary estate reinforces every underlying narrative of conditional acceptance. On a human level, it sends an unmistakable message. Despite holding the title of Queen Consort, her presence and authority within private family domains remain strictly contained. Looking toward the future, Princess's calculated legal maneuver establishes a crucial precedent for how the estate will be managed across generations. As Prince William prepares for his eventual ascension to the throne, Sandringham will transition to his personal ownership. Having spent years raising his family at Hall on the same estate, William will inherit not only the physical land, but also the complex web of binding legal agreements crafted during this transitional era. Whether this shift toward contractual clarity brings long-term stability or permanently damages internal family cohesion remains the central question facing the modern monarchy. Ultimately, this silent legal battle proves that the most profound royal drama does not play out through sensational tabloid headlines or public statements, but through quiet, irreversible legal signatures. As the House of Windsor adapts to a changing world, the lines drawn within Sandringham stand as a stark, enduring symbol of family learning to navigate duty, power, and survival behind locked doors.